Welcome to AEducate, the podcast from Avernus Education. Join us as we delve into the world of education, leadership and innovation, giving listeners fresh ideas, inspiration and unique insights. Whether you're a student, a parent or an education professional, our podcast offers a valuable opportunity to learn from the best and stay informed about the most pressing issues and debates in the world of education. Connect, tune in, AEducate. Welcome to this edition of the Avernus Education Podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Clemmie Stewart. Clemmie is the new Executive Principal of Beech Hall School, Riyadh, Blenheim School's first international school. Clemmie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me. It's a privilege.
And I wonder if we could just start by talking a little bit about your own journey, your own leadership journey. I know for listeners that are familiar with the UK, you started one of your earlier roles as head of prep schools at Surbiton High, and then moved on to be Director of Teaching and Learning at Chatsworth Schools. And now you're very much back on the front line in your new role. It must be very exciting. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about those transitions.
Sure. So I'm hugely excited to be stepping back into school leadership, having taken 2 years out to work across our schools as part of Chatsworth. I think spending time in a school is the biggest privilege anyone can have. I think children are the most delightful people to be around. They're fun, they're enthusiastic, they're optimistic. And I loved being a head teacher. It was one of my favourite jobs in the world. So I'm really looking forward to coming back and doing that, albeit in a very, very different setting in Riyadh in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I
can imagine there's a mixture of excitement and maybe some slight trepidation as well with the enormity of the project that lays ahead. And I was reading about the school on the website, and really, really exciting. A lot about promoting a personalised and bespoke approach to education. And I think you call it this reimagined education, which I really, really liked. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that exciting prospect.
Sure. So Chatsworth is predominantly schools in the United Kingdom, but I've been lucky to be involved in 2 startups for Chatsworth and Blenheim over the last 2 years, one in Dubai, and then most recently this role in Saudi. And it really is an educator's dream for somebody to say, blank sheet of paper, plot of land, what would you do? What would you make? And it really makes you, certainly for me, rethink what's really the purpose of education? What are we actually seeking to do? I keep hearing people talking about preparing children for the 21st century. Well, we're already 20 years into that. So we really should be looking at the 22nd century now, I think. And just acknowledging that many of the education systems and processes that we utilise now are really out of date, and therefore how we can start to reimagine what our children need to do. And for us, that means reimagining learning spaces, reimagining a curriculum, reimagining the role of the teacher into more of that mentor and facilitator role. And just really thinking about that end product. And by product, I mean what you get from your education, not the child. You know, we're not just heading for Russell Group universities. Yes, some of our children might do that, and that's fantastic for them. But equally, we've got budding entrepreneurs. We've got children who are going to go straight into labour and vocational work. And actually, we need to make sure that our children are fully ready for that, rather than just chasing down 4 A levels and a decent UCAS personal statement.
That idea of a blank sheet of canvas must be very appealing. I suppose some people might hear education, Saudi Arabia. On the one hand, there's a blank sheet, but on the other hand, possibly some challenges and obstacles. What's it going to be like entering this growth market? And how do you balance the sort of new opportunities with some of those hurdles?
Sure. I mean, I think, we have to be realistic about any international expansion. You have to be so mindful and respectful of the context that you're moving into. And one of the things that we've been really keen to do with this project is not just take a blueprint of one of our schools in the UK and just plonk it down in Riyadh and hope that it flies, because A, that's completely disrespecting the country that you're moving into. B, it's making assumptions that all children are the same, when of course we know that they're not. So what we've actually really sought to do is find out much more about the context of the country and what they're seeking to do in the world of education. So anyone who's interested in expansion in Saudi and that growth market, look up the Saudi 2030 vision, because that really outlines where the country's seeking to go. They want to diversify their economy. They want to be that link between Africa, Asia and Europe. They want to develop social responsibility and have more people leading healthy and fulfilling lives. Therefore, we've got to co-construct an educational approach that enables more of their citizens to do that. And our school is designed very much for a Saudi population, but also the international expat market as well. And so it's got to be something that everyone can stake a claim on and feel like it belongs to them. The other strand of Saudi 2030 that you have to be mindful of is the Islamic and national identity that the country still want to retain, and understandably so. And it's about making sure you're safeguarding that. So one of the things that our parents this year are most impressed with is the quality of learning and teaching in Arabic and Islamic. You know, we're absolutely focusing on that and making sure we do that really well. But then getting our Arabic and Islamic teams to co-plan with the homeroom teachers so that that thematic connected curriculum runs through everything. And Arabic and Islamic is a fundamental aspect of that. But you absolutely have to be mindful of what you're doing and making sure that you're respectful and compliant within the country that you're operating.
Yeah, I can imagine it's a real sort of balancing act in some of those things you're talking about. And again, on some of the material that I've read about the school, it's talking about nurturing a diverse, inclusive, global school community. And I can imagine you're aligning it with that 2030 vision. Absolutely. And I guess this idea of mainstream inclusion, which in a culture where that's not so... there's been some obstacles there in a way. Inclusive education, I guess that's a really pioneering aspect of what the school are trying to do as well.
100%. And, you know, for us, that was the main draw to come involved with this project. So, you know, let's be candid, as I'm sure we can be. You know, when we were first approached about the role, about the school, we were asked, you know, by our CEO, who's willing to go and work in Saudi Arabia, who's up for the challenge and who doesn't want to. And we had some really good, candid and transparent conversations as a sort of central team. And I just leapt at the opportunity straight away, because I just think, you know, you change the world through education, you change the future generations through education. And therefore, if we can develop children with that open growth mindset and that ability to really diversify and contribute to the world in a positive way, we'll do it through schools, which is why we did that. And again, you know, we are, I think I'm right in saying we are the most inclusive school in Riyadh. Certainly, I can't speak for the whole of Saudi, wow. In so much as we have up to 25% of our population have a diagnosed special need. And we are very proud of how we cater for those children in a truly inclusive way. So it's not just that we've got a really good learning support room at the end of a corridor that the children go off to for half an hour a day and come back and we don't really talk about it. Actually, it happens right in the heart of the school. Some of our great breakout spaces are in the heart of the school. We have a team of therapists, speech and language, occupational health and occupational therapy, counsellors, and they all sit as a core part of our team, because of course they're not just there for the 25%. All children will hit barriers in their learning. All children will have ups and downs, and it's about really tailoring the experience for every child. And of course, at the other end, you've got children who are hugely bright and inquisitive in certain areas that a traditional education might not scratch the itch. So it's about providing that stretch and challenge and ambition for every single child, regardless of their starting point.
And let's just talk about some of those learning spaces a little bit more, because certainly as a pupil and then in my teaching days, I can remember operating in spaces that you just thought maybe there could have been a little bit more to them in terms of enhancing that environment. And my understanding is that the new school will be sort of partnered with or working with Space Zero Designs, which are certainly... just on first glance looks really inspiring, and I'd imagine that's going to create real excitement and new innovative spaces around the school. Are they involved in the entire campus?
They have been. So again, working with them has just been such an honour. You know, they are such a gifted group of individuals, so creative. They really understand education and educational spaces. They have on their team the most phenomenal woman called Gladys, who's their SEN specialist. And she's really good at helping us to think about making each space work for every child. And I think, you know, again, when we designed it from literally a blank piece of paper, we wanted each learning space to feel welcoming, to feel nurturing, engaging, but also not overwhelming. You know, I spent many years working in a junior school, you know, state school, junior school, at the time when you were supposed to have things hanging off the ceilings, hanging on the windows, everything jumping out of displays. And, you know, even for neurotypical children, that's so distracting and it has no impact apart from taking up hours of teachers' time. So it's making sure the learning spaces are engaging and you want to be in there, but they're not distracting and they support learning. And then within that, we've made sure that all of the spaces are really flexible. So the children can move the chairs around, move the tables around. There's soft seating blocks that will support sort of whole class discussions, presentations, so that they are really owning their spaces. And then beyond the classrooms, we've got some amazing shared flexible spaces where we'll be able to hold TED Talks, where we'll be able to have children debating, where we'll be having loads of presentations and sport and the creative arts. And then also we've really focused on developing spaces where parents feel welcome. I published a book with Dr. Emma Kell last year on maximising engagement with parents. And a lot of the data shows that parents have to feel like a meaningful partner in that relationship in order for children to thrive and make progress. So we've created the most stunning parent cafe where parents can just drop in, maybe work from school for a couple of hours, have a quick coffee with a teacher, see how things are going, and just have that really meaningful working partnership that's not too formalised and scary for everybody involved.
No, absolutely. Well, I'd love to come and visit one day. It sounds like a wonderful space. And as you were saying, something that works for every child in different ways. And some of our parents, listeners coming from places like Hong Kong might be a little bit surprised that the next item to discuss about is the no homework policy, something that I'm actually personally quite a big fan of, and I think there's a lot of work that should be and thinking that needs to be done in certain schools around homework and the purpose of it. But was the idea of having no homework a sort of an easy logical choice for yourself and the school, or was it something that you really had to mull over the pros and cons of?
Yeah, for me, it's an absolute no-brainer. And I see that as a teacher and also as a head. You know, when I worked at Surbiton High, you know, one of the first things we did was review the homework for the children, because the data, I always go back to academic research, and the research is very clear, particularly for primary children. It doesn't really have impact. And as a teacher, I certainly remember that panic at about 5 to 3, where you suddenly think, my God, I haven't set any homework. And you'd find some rubbish resource that you'd download or photocopy a comprehension that you kind of get away with handing out, and the children knew it was rubbish and you knew it was rubbish, and it was all a bit awkward. So what's the point? Mm-hmm. And also, you know, if we're doing our jobs well at school, then the children are going home exhausted, mentally stretched, you know, slightly overwhelmed sometimes, I think, with what they've experienced in the day with their friends. Actually, the benefits of them sitting down with you as parents, having supper, talking about their day beyond it was fine, we did nothing, to actually talk about their learning and talk about their experiences, snuggle up with a book, go for a play. You know, I think that's a really important part of child development. And actually, we should be doing enough in school that they are gathering their learning and their progress through that. However, I would also add the caveat that if you're inspiring them enough in areas that they're really interested in, they will continue that self-study at home in areas that they're really excited to find out about. So no, it was an easy sell for me. It was an easy sell for most of the staff. It often takes some discussion with parents.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of AEducate, the Avernus Education podcast. For those that don't know, Avernus Education provides inspiration and direction to students, helping them get ahead of the competition and maximise their chances of success. We work in collaboration with students, parents and schools to support young learners in their educational pathway, no matter what phase of the journey they are in. From university admission mentorship to subject knowledge enhancement, we provide clarity and guidance to students in order to help them discover their passion, support them in decision making, and develop a personalised roadmap to further their ambitions and guide them to achieve their academic goals.
No, I can absolutely believe that. And can you see, is this the way, in your opinion, that a lot of schools are going with internationally, but also in the UK? Do you see it as a growing trend?
It certainly works for some of our UK schools. I think it completely depends. Again, goes back to my initial point about setting up a school in Saudi. It goes down to the context of the school. So if you've got a school where, for whatever reason, the children are having to be really stretched into something like the 11 plus process or SATs or GCSEs or, there are definite reasons where homework is valuable and viable for certain children and certain schools. However, for me, I think the impact on their mental health and development is always going to be more important. And therefore, that's where I would prioritise it. But I think, as long as schools are still having to chase that one stream of outcome and they've all got to get to university, then the pressure's going to increase, isn't it? Whereas actually, if they're chasing the right outcomes for them and equal value and celebration is placed on that, then the focus changes.
Definitely. And I think the exciting area of what students are doing outside of the classroom, and I thought it was a brilliant way of phrasing it for Beech House School, how we play, or Beech Hall School, pardon me, how we play, which was the extracurricular provision, I guess. And it's a part of the world where football is kind of quite high up the list on people's priorities.
Yeah.
Is it a sport that you're going to embrace as a school?
I think we're going to have to. I think the whole of Saudi has gone football mad. In fact, I move out there obviously at the end of this month, but up to now I think I've been out there 8 times in the last year and a half, and one of the times was literally a 4-day trip to just catch up on everything that's happening in the school, look at all the learning and teaching. And it was the day that Saudi were playing Argentina in the World Cup. So the ministry
2-0 wasn't it in the end?
What a day to be there. The ministry decided that morning they were going to shut all schools. So we very quickly had to send all the children home so that they were back in time to watch the match. And then, of course, they won. So they then shut the schools again the next day. So what was a 4-day learning and teaching review became a 2-day football celebration. But it was incredible to see how enthusiastic and passionate everybody was. And the streets of Riyadh were just filled with people waving their Saudi flags and just celebrating. It was really lovely to see. The boys and girls at Beech Hall are already obsessed with football. We have the most amazing female PE teacher who has played football at a really high level. So we've already got the capacity there to really galvanise that passion and build on it. And I think for us, we see a responsibility with our co-curricular provision that we ignite a lifelong love of learning and passion and exploration through different opportunities. So I want them to play football, and then if they enjoy football, I want them to keep going with it. But equally, if they do it for a while and don't like it, I want that to be okay as well, and for them to then choose something else they want to try and experience. And all of that comes through our co-curricular provision, but also, just being with their friends and using some of those great spaces that we're going to have. I also think for our, we have a very strong mental health and wellbeing strand, and I want the children to develop sports that they might continue into adult life. So I played hockey all the way through my school career. I've never since picked up a hockey stick, but I go running, I do yoga. So I want them to experience some sports that they're more likely to take into their adult lives and develop those habits of good health and good practice.
And it's absolutely the case, isn't it, that for a lot of this, developing a passion within the students and something both co-curricularly and academically that they will take through beyond school. And I suppose it's perhaps early days, the school's young, but if you were to project a few years into the future and think about where the leavers are going once they leave the school and graduate, do you see a lot of the students staying in Saudi Arabia? Do you see them accessing British universities? What's your sense on as a school, the sort of curriculum and what that's best preparing your leavers for?
Such a good question. We're actually, I don't know if you know, we're offering a dual curriculum for the older children. So we're offering the American curriculum and then also the international curriculum, resulting in an IB, because we recognise we're going to have such a diverse range of outcomes at the end, which is fantastic, and that's what we want. I think, yes, some will go to university, and I think that would be absolutely the right destination for them. I think others will go straight into doing internships and going into the world of work. I mean, gosh, I never wanted to go to university. I wanted to be a teacher, and so I had to go to university. But I wanted to work. I wanted to earn. I wanted to be in that kind of grown-up world of industry. And I know loads of our children will be the same. One of the key strands of our curriculum tapestry is enterprise and innovation. So from grade 1 all the way through to grade 12, they follow a curriculum in innovation and enterprise, resulting in their own version of an MBA in grades 11 and 12, because we know that a huge number of our children are definitely going to go on and be entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and run companies and have side hustles. I've no doubt we'll have some budding side hustles going on while they're still in school, which we'll need to keep an eye on. But I think that's really important. And I think, going to a question about the Saudi children, the area of growth in Saudi is remarkable, and the youth of the population is incredible. So I can't remember the exact percentage, but a huge percentage of the population are under the age of 30. And so we've got a really young generation coming through who want to stay in Saudi Arabia, but want to see a more diverse experience of being in Saudi Arabia. So I think a lot of our children will end up staying in Saudi and contributing to that new society.
And most of the pupils that are applying to the school, are they, like you said, there was a combination of, I suppose, local children and expat children. I don't know if you can say anything else about the demographic of the pupils.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's changing all the time. I mean, we've been open, we had a soft launch for a year, and we've got, I think, 50, 60 children, but we've already got 170 registered as of today, ready for next year. So we've tripled the numbers. And so looking at data is quite hard to look for patterns. But we have a really strong intake of Saudi children who are coming looking for something slightly different in education and looking for something slightly different to what's on offer out there, either traditional Saudi schools or traditional international schools. They want something different, and they found that in Beech Hall. We've then got, I think it's about 20 or 30% of our children are expats. But again, lots more big companies are moving into Saudi and moving into Riyadh, which is seeing a huge uptake in interest from our expat community as well. So, I mean, our hope is that they'll all see themselves as global citizens, and actually they won't really see the difference between whether they are from Saudi or an expat. But that's the dream.
And just possibly last question. There'll be some of our listeners are students, and they might not be fortunate enough to go to a school such as Beech Hall. What, if you were just, in your experience of being ahead and working with schools, if you were to give 3 of your top pieces of advice to a young learner, just in terms of how they could make the most out of what they're doing as they enter the classroom or as they go about their school career, what would be your 3 best pieces of advice?
This is very timely, because I rushed back this afternoon from a prize giving at one of our schools in the UK where I'd done a speech, these kind of rousing year 6 off you go type speeches, and I was actually trying to give them a toolkit for learning. So I've chosen 3 of those. I think my first one is fail well. I think I said to the girls today, make failure a good travelling companion of yours, because you failed loads of times up to now, which is how you learn to walk and how you learn to talk and how you've learned to do everything. And actually failing, it leads to so many amazing learning opportunities, but you've got to get comfortable with it. So I told them they've got to get failing. The second bit of advice I gave them was to mind their own business, which drew a bit of a shock, I think, from some of the parents. But then I explained what I meant by that, which is, so long as you behave with integrity and kindness and respect, actually what other people think of you is none of your business. And you can get so bogged down in worrying about what other people think. I was offered my first headship when I was 29. And I said to my boss at the time, this is ridiculous, I'm far too young, God, it just can't work. She's like, do you think you're too young, or do you think people think you're too young? I was like, well, people will definitely say I'm too young. She said, well, it's none of your business, so that's not a reason, move on. And it was some of the best advice I've ever had. So yeah, fail well, mind your own business. And then the final one is just try everything, because you're too young at school. I think we're too young now, but maybe I'm being kind of You're too young to decide one path. You're too young to decide that I'm a historian or I'm rubbish at sport, whatever it might be. You've got to try everything because there are going to be so many exciting opportunities ahead. And these children, they're going to go for jobs that don't exist. They're going to use technology that doesn't exist. They've got to be open-minded to opportunities, and we have to help them to keep their minds open.
3 absolute golden pieces of advice there. Thank you so much, Clemmie. Really a different take on things. I particularly like that second point, but very valuable advice.
Oh.
Clemmie Stewart, the new executive principal at Beech Hall School in Riyadh. Thank you so much for speaking with Avernus Education today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Great questions, really good questions, really thought-provoking. Thank you.
Thank you.